Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. So it's Daniel Berger. Thank you all for coming back for another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I'm Daniel Berger, and this week we have I'm excited to have an Upper East Side, born and raised, quality, top-notch broker, Nikki Beauchamp, who comes with us. She's an associate broker from Sotheby's International, with over two decades of experience. 2 decades of real estate experience. She's actually, I think, classically trained as a musician. She also, if that's not even enough, there's even more. I think she's gone to the NYU Stern School of Business, where she has her MS in statistics. It's almost like she's the Renaissance woman, because I don't know what she doesn't know what to do. I think anything she tackles, she does so well. She's also a founding advisor of Engel and Volkers, which is a top branded real estate company in the city. And if that wasn't enough, besides all the volunteer activities that we'll talk about, she's also for 13 years she's been a contributing writer to Inman News, which is basically feeds us a lot of information about what's going on in the real estate world. So with that, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us for the podcast. I'm excited to learn from you.
I'm delighted to be with you. Just listening to that makes me really tired. I probably need more sleep and a few more hobbies. Although these days, a lot of my time I'm definitely obsessed with my dog. So that's like the center of my world these days.
So
But yeah,
you have
I have
Well,
a little dog.
I'm a dog person, so I have to ask a few follow-up
Okay,
questions on that. So,
Hudson, Hudson,
how
come
old's
here.
your dog? Where
He's
dogs
about
are allowed
4.
in the 4 years
Hudson,
old.
come.
So you said Hudson's the dog's name?
This is Hudson.
Oh, very good. I just got a puppy that was born maybe 10 weeks ago, and we named him Montana. And he's a Labradoodle, and he's the brother of my 8-year-old, who my 8-year-old actually needed spinal surgery. So my walks in a wheelchair, gets physical therapy. Um, so it's kind of like you said the same thing. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm an empty nester now, but I have these 2 dogs at the house, but we love them.
I
And
love them. They're just bundles of love. I mean,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
amazing. This little guy is just pure love and pure joy.
And Hudson's not asking you when you're getting your next accepted offer or going into contract, so that's really good.
Well, I mean, I actually think in some ways maybe he might, because that means more treats for him. Maybe it
Exactly.
means more toys. My previous dog, so here in the city, we have condos, we have co-ops, and we have townhouses. And with co-ops, we've often got these gigantic board packages that used to be mostly paper. We have gone there, they are more digitized now, but my previous dog used to have a great talent. As I was sitting on the floor and trying to wrestle through things, he would like to sit and lay on the paper. And he always did that with board packages, and it was a very good omen when he did do that.
I'm a little bit north of you in Westchester County, and do a few other counties in Connecticut. Co-ops are certainly a thing that other people around the country and the world are less used to
Less
than that's
less
more of
used to. I
that's
mean,
more of a New York
it's
thing.
definitely a New York thing. I call it When you're buying in a co-op, it's almost like you're presenting yourself as a prospective investor in this corporation. So your board package is essentially your prospectus to apply to be an investor. And so like that has helped some of my buyers, even though they're irritated by all the stuff they have to produce. They're like, well, when you put it that way, I kind of get it, but it's still just a gigantic pain with all
There
the
are,
disclosures. And
I would say,
you guys have a little more transparency with your co-ops than we do down here.
I mean, the issues with co-ops are that it's easier sometimes to get into college, a country club, um, and a fraternity or sorority sometimes than these boards. There is a little bit of the cloak and dagger of mystery. I would say that that actually takes it to the next level in New York City compared to Westchester. But they're very evasive. You have to basically share everything, and you know, I guess the reason is that co-ops, at least more for me, is more of it's a little bit less expensive than if you go the townhouse and condo world, and so that's kind of where. But again, less
Yeah,
expensive is all
but
relative, right? Because there's still condo
there's still,
co-ops in the.
but also I think that the challenge is that there's a price differential between like the condos and the co-ops, and it can range, I've seen 20-25% difference between a, a condo and a co-op, and then the size. So your co-op is generally larger, so you're going to get more space, even though, they don't quote square footage, that's a whole thing, at a lower price point than if you go to a similar style of building of condo where you're going to be 25% higher, just to say hypothetically. So I think that that also factors in the financial requirements, the co-ops. Like the thing that I think is the most frustrating, especially for buyers, trying to explain to a buyer that every building has a different rule. Some buildings are 20%, some buildings are 25%, some are 30%, some are 40%. Some you can finance, some you can't finance. Some require you to have at least, 2 years of post-closing liquidity of your maintenance and your mortgage. Others may require you to have multiples of the purchase price in liquid assets after closing. So it's like every building is its own ecosystem with its own rules and requirements. And that can be really, really difficult to explain to a buyer who all they know is they were searching online and they saw something on StreetEasy, they saw something on Zillow. All they see are the most minimal of the requirements. They see the price, they see how much the monthlies are, but they don't see what all of the context is behind all of that. So having to
And
tell
that
someone,
Well, that's also our job, right? To bring people in and to explain that. And obviously, you with your financial background certainly makes you much more intelligent to be able to probably synthesize what's going on and try to basically put it in a way that makes sense for these homeowners, the purchasers. What percent of your business is co-ops?
uh, that side probably tells you more percentage than I would like. Co-op inventory is still the majority of the inventory here in the city. So I'm still mostly co-op and then condo. So I would say 60% co-op,
I mean, that's not bad. You just need to get
60,
more than
70. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. If you can just source more $20 million plus buyers, then you can maybe move more, 100% into the condo and townhouse world. But that's a whole
Yeah,
other
I mean, but
ball game.
that's a whole other ball game. I mean, one of the things that people look at the what's in the media, and the media often loves to report on how many of these super expensive 4 million, 10 million, 20 million, 40 million, 60 million things sold. But the truth of the matter is that the most of the transactions are probably below 2 million, the
Yeah.
overwhelming majority of transactions. So, you know, people say, oh, I really want to focus on like the luxury segment. Well, if the luxury segment is effectively, less than 5% of the entire transaction volume, do you want to focus on that or do you want to eat?
Except that Nikki, $1 million listing is a fun show to watch, and it's obviously it's based in truth, but it's a show, and obviously with the plot lines and all that, people watch that and they're like, oh, this is what I want to do, but that is not real life. And I agree with you that um, doing more transactions and lower end more transactions turns into some of those, and even last year I did a $4 million co-op in Manhattan with with people that are affiliated with the $1 million listing people, and it was a very complicated deal, and it was interesting. It was a the owner was from China and selling took to different levels because of I guess there wasn't exactly a communication as to what they should do or shouldn't do when they vacate. An example was they took all the entire kitchen away. And so a house that had gas before, we were like, well, we kind of found out before. We're like, no, the walkthrough, you have to put the kitchen back. So they kind of put the kitchen back, but they didn't put the kitchen back in a safe manner. And basically there was a smell of gas at our preliminary walkthrough. And we had to call Con Ed, and they red tagged the building. Um, and they said, well, the only way that you're going to be able to ever get gas back in your kitchen is if you do this gas test. Well, co-ops have a rule that you can't do that gas test because if you do the gas test, most of the building's going to fail, and then everyone has to do away with it. So it turned out that from the walkthrough to the closing, they basically had to be like over $100,000 credit because the person could never get gas back in the apartment and had to switch everything to electric. And that's and there was almost a gas explosion. We had to open windows, and somebody tried to light a pilot. We're like, no. So a funny thing happened on the way to my closing, and we did close, but it was and these were people that, like, the team was like a legitimate, like, $1 million listing people, but in the end of the day, it's you got to use your common sense in your head. And if you're representing a buyer, you got to do all you can to represent the buyer. And if you're representing the seller, the same thing. But I guess in China, you buy really the four walls of the apartment, and you don't really get the things inside. And there's probably some history of, well, you don't want my kitchen and you don't want my bathroom. But guess
But
what?
I
When you're
think, but I think, when you mention that, when I'm walking through a property with a seller and we talk about what are the things that are included, what are the things that you are planning to take, what are the things that you may or may not, you might be willing, so think about, okay, you're taking the TV, but are you leaving the installation of the TV? Or I have a seller who said, well, I just bought this refrigerator and I really want it for my next property. I'm like, okay, well, then you need to buy a different refrigerator. Like all of these things. And then it's super important when we are going through the negotiations that we talk about what's included or what's not included. And that's also for rentals. I have a rental now where the tenant is asking for things that were not represented to be included, at least from our perspective, but
right.
somehow from the agent that they worked with said otherwise. So now my client is in a position where we want to be sure that the tenant is happy in the space. So we're trying to accommodate as much as we can, even though we had no idea that they had been promised these things. And these are the kinds of things that never, it doesn't matter how long you do this, there's always something that's going to come up that will be um, problematic. I mean, talk about, last night I think I was walking not quite home, but I was walking in to order a sandwich at like 9:15, and I left my apartment at 6:30 yesterday morning. And I had dropped off keys to a short-term rental that my clients had rented while we were waiting for their closing. And they were supposed to leave the keys in the apartment. They didn't. So I had to go and retrieve the keys from the hotel of like the parent, and then I had to drop off the keys for the landlord. And the landlord gave me instructions. So I get there and I walk in, I knock on the door, don't hear anything. So I use the keys. I open the door and I was instructed to place the keys on the table. And of course, I was going to take a picture and said, okay, this is what I did. I opened the door and I barely took one step in and I took one step right back. And I call the landlord, like, so there are people here. They're not here, but their stuff is here. So you need to tell me what you want me to do with the keys. Okay, fine. She says, put it on the table. I said, okay, no problem. Took the picture, sent her a text. Why at 9:15 was she calling me saying that the people couldn't get into the apartment, that they were locked out? I'm like, I don't understand how they're locked out, because clearly they were already provided keys and they were able to lock the apartment when they left. The keys that I just dropped off, I'm assuming are the same keys. So,
Right.
but again, how is this it's not a me issue. That's that's an issue on your end. But here I am at 9:15 dealing with that call. And then this morning, my client who had rented the apartment, she called me. She goes, oh, so did they ever figure out what was going on? And I explained to her the whole thing. And she goes, I don't understand how that's a you problem. I said, it actually isn't a me problem.
Right.
But also, if you had left the keys where you were supposed to leave them, I wouldn't have had to make space in my day to go retrieve these keys, then also make space somewhere else to go and drop these keys off. But I didn't read that.
There is, I do have a question though. You left your apartment yesterday very early in the morning. You didn't get back till after your sandwich. Where was Hudson? Who took care of Hudson during the day? That's my question.
So Hudson was out and about with me yesterday.
Okay. Well,
As,
I'm just checking.
as
I
he
gotta make sure that Hudson is provided for.
as he often is. He is a wonderful companion being out and about.
Well,
But
that,
yeah,
well,
he
that's,
was he was very excited because he wanted to, a piece of my sandwich, of turkey sandwich.
so,
But he likes
well, I mean,
turkey. I like turkey too.
so what you just said is like, that is part, like, so
Yeah, and
real
and
estate.
and like in between that, so I left my house. I had a 7 a.m. meeting. Then I got to my office. I went briefly to the office to try and write up an offer because I was having trouble doing it easily from my phone. There were some documents I needed to kind of pull them together. So I go there, I do that. Then I had to go be at the Real Estate Board of New York at 9 because there was a session that was happening in person. And I co-chair the NYRS designation, which is a designation of like maybe 3% of brokers at Rebney. And I wanted to be there to say hi to our speakers. And then I had to leave because I had a broker tour that my listing was on from 9:30 to 11:30. So I was sitting in my listing from 9:30 to 11:30 for the broker tour. Then somewhere in all of that, we had our weekly sales meeting. So I called in remotely to that. Then I had a showing, and I had a showing that moved almost an hour late because they were running late on their appointments. So that gave me the space to go run and pick up these keys that my client had called me, in a panic in the morning. Oh my God, yada, yada. He's on his way to the airport and he has the keys and we need to get the keys back. Can you go and get the keys? Sure. I don't know when in my day I'm going to fit it in. And so
Oh,
like it's all of that and the back and the forth to the different brokers and okay, here's a counter, or no, we're not countering, or no, that's too low. And that's what the day has been. My last couple of days have all been like. It's when I'm up at the crack of dawn and I'm just like running, running, running. My phone hardly ever leaves my hand. Um, and I'm usually a little bit better.
Well, you know what? I actually think that I love hearing about your day, but honestly, that's probably been your day for a long, long time. Like every time, like our job is one that we need to be flexible, right? Because if you can't have flexibility and you need to have things written down, that's not what we do. Things your day changed as you were on the fly, and you need to be comfortable with that. And ultimately, you said it wasn't a Nikki problem. Probably is rarely a Nikki problem, but becomes a Nikki problem because you're trying to satisfy your clients
We're
and you're
trying to
trying to
solve problems.
exactly
Like
that's all we do, right?
I solve puzzles and I solve problems, and that's why people are great agents, to help advise them, give them market context, help advise them with the information so they can make informed decisions. And along the way, there are going to be dozens of problems and dozens of things that pop up. And it's for me to stay calm, stay collected, and say, okay, this is how we can solve that. Or hold on a second, I'm not quite sure. Let me see what I can figure out. And so, look, for the last couple of days, especially, there has been there's been more activity over the last week or so, where I'm running around with buyers and we are finding that things have accepted offers, contracts out, or have received offers. So it's giving my buyers the context of, if we find something that works for us, we kind of need to make it. If it's the right property, we can't really sit and wait, because they tried that once before. We
Right.
actually these clients were looking a couple of years back and they decided not to proceed. And the first thing they said earlier this year is, we wish we had. And I said, well, I understand why, and perhaps that should have been the case. I said, but maybe this is now the opportunity that you have, your budget has expanded, which gives you more choice. And it gives you the latitude of, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you would have had to consider something that needed a little sprucing up cosmetically. But now you can opt to prioritize recently renovated or completely gut renovated or brand new.
I mean, some of that is Monday morning quarterback, right? It's easy to look back 3 years and say, "Oh, what we should have done." Because if we were in a tremendous buyer's market now, then you wouldn't have said that, because you're like, "Oh, it was good that we waited 3 years. The market crashed, but we don't have crystal balls, so we don't
We
know if
don't we
any of
don't have
that's going to
crystal balls, and
happen."
I think the thing is that, when you are interested in doing something, you have to look at what your real estate world looks like, because we have all of these media reports and things going at all times, and sometimes that creates a lot of chaos for people. You need to stop and say, okay, here's what we're reading. Now, here's what's going on in our world. Why do I want to buy? Why do I need to buy? Why do I want to sell? Why do I need to sell? What's my next step going to be? And sort of take the information and provide the context to then make decisions that make sense. I have clients that, when the Fed fund rate didn't get cut in February, March, and the probability kept sort of pushing further and further out, I have clients who were like, you know what, we're going to hold on. We don't need to do this right now. We would like to, but maybe we'll hold on until the fall. Maybe we'll do it next spring. But then there are other people who are like, I need to sell this year, because this is the last year before my capital gains and extractor, et cetera. So I need to do this now, because if I don't, the financial implications will be more severe later. And every person is their own ecosystem and has their own decisions to make. And so, like, I've never been a fan of saying it's the best time for everything. What the opportunity is really depends on your specific circumstances. There may be an opportunity in any market for you, depending on what your specific circumstances and goals dictate.
I mean,
That's the way to approach it.
I
For me,
agree
my
100.
opinion.
I agree. No, I mean, I love your opinion. I think it's valid, and there's a lot of social media and a lot of people putting themselves on, Instagram and Snapchat and TikToks and all that. And a lot of it is that people, they're not sure what to do when they get in front of a camera, and they say things that they want to say for whatever reason, but it's not necessarily fact based because we don't know what the market's going to be 6 months or a year. We might have guesses, but we don't know. And to try to say that now's the best time, I agree with you 100%. It depends, right? If you're selling an estate because your parents are passed and no one's living there and you're just accruing
You're
fees,
just
well,
hemorrhaging fees, and then maybe now it makes the most sense.
or but again, that's the point of having a professional real estate agent broker who can basically help them get in front of, either we have the answers, we can get the answers, or we can bring in experts that can guide them as well, and they have to make the best decisions that are right for them. So I agree 100% that the time is right now for some people, not for everyone, and we can't make those decisions, but we can try to get them in front of the information so that they can make the best decisions for themselves.
1000%. And I think the other thing about this is that all of this is a long game. It's a long game. And you can't, my opinion, you can't, as an agent, do something today and expect an immediate impact tomorrow. It doesn't really work that way. You are planting seeds along the way, and you have to keep tending to it like a garden. And it's hilarious, and I'm using this metaphor because I could kill any plant, and I do not have a green thumb. But it's how you spend your time and your energy cultivating and nurturing the relationships and building the trust and continuing to build the trust. And that results in people will call you. People will call you. People will seek out your advice because they consider you to be their expert advisor and they trust you as their advisor. Like, that's the whole point.
Well,
And the more that you think about things, I think, from that broader perspective, it changes so many things.
that's also that's like the next phase of a question that I wanted to ask you. My first is what's your advice for people that are just starting out? But I want to preface it by saying that if someone's based off of looking for transactions, then they're going to seem more desperate in overall, because they're going to be pushing people to do things that's in their best interest, not necessarily their client's best interest. And you're right 100% that it's the long-term game, game, because you're not focused on a transaction that's now, next month, or the following month. You're looking for long-term clients, right? Where they look to you as their advocate and their solutions based person in the real estate world. And so if it's not now, you know what? You're right. Maybe it's in 2 years and they're going to call
Maybe
Nikki
it's
because they're going to
there.
say Nikki gave us good advice. And and ultimately, the more things that you put in the hopper that you're looking at the long term, your phone will ring this month. It will ring next month for things that you've already planted and not killed from 3, 5, 10,
Yeah,
15
and
years
I
ago.
think and I think that the thing about it is that, it's providing the right advice and acting in your client's best interest. And sometimes it's not the right time or it's not the right property for them to move forward with. And that sometimes is more valuable than people give it credit for, because you do not, I'll give you an example. So these glasses that I'm wearing, um, there's a local place that I love getting reading glasses from. And this is, I think, I don't remember, this is not my first pair, maybe my second or my third pair. But the day that I bought this pair, I went in to get the previous pair repaired. And I'm talking to the manager. And we're chatting. And she was curious at what do I do for a living. So I explained to her, I'm a real estate broker. And we're chatting. And she went off on a 30-minute diatribe about an experience that she had with a broker when she bought her. And, I was listening and going, oh my God, thank God, that I never want that to be me. And then I asked, I said, so how long ago did you buy your apartment? Like 12, 15 years ago. So potentially, this person has been complaining about how awful that experience was for at
Did
least
she
10
did
years.
she did she name the person?
I was able to figure out who it was. I asked one or two questions, and because I was kind of curious,
Right.
and I said, and I was able to figure out who it was. But that's what you don't want. You don't, sure, you got that transaction, but for 10 years, this person, she's been complaining to anybody who will
We're buying a pair of
will talk to
glasses.
her. I was
Exactly.
literally buying a pair of glasses, finding my own business, and this is what conversation became. So versus I have people that, for whatever reason, they didn't transact in New York. Maybe they moved to Westchester, maybe they moved to New Jersey, maybe they moved to Connecticut, maybe they moved to Florida, maybe they moved to London and decided not to do something here. But I still remain the center of any time they have real estate questions, they call me first. Anytime they have anyone in their life who has a real estate question, they tell them to call me first, or they say, hi, I have such and such, and would you be willing to have a conversation with them? And that's kind of what you want. And it's not that I'm detached from the goal, because ultimately I run a business. The business needs to be profitable. I'm not working for free. This is not a charity, but doing the right thing for your clients long term. And my clients feel that I am their partner on a broader level for all of their things real estate related, whether it's here in New York or anywhere else.
And I think those are good ideas for people that are just starting out. If you're young
Yeah.
and
And
starting
so if
out,
you're young and starting out, a couple of advantages that I think you have. Whether you are young in years and starting out or just new to the business, you do not have years, decades of we've always done it this way. So your ability to adapt to newer, streamlined ways of doing things might be a little bit easier because you're not trying to unlearn other things. Your ability to learn more about the market, going back 20 years, think about all the data that we have at our fingertips. Someone could ask me, hi, so what's the average days on market for properties over 4 million in Manhattan? And 2 days ago, Donna Olshan released her report. Comes out every Monday by like 7:15. It's one of the first. Clearly, I look for it every Monday. And data like that. So I would say learn your market, learn the stats, learn the trends, go out and see inventory. Nothing can replace feeling a space and being able to say to someone, oh, this week I saw 10 different apartments, and I saw some rental apartments, and I saw some condos for sale. I saw some new developments. That will also give you more confidence in the product and the business that you're learning. Find a mentor. Find a mentor. Find someone in your office who maybe needs some help, and they're willing to. There are many opportunities for you to learn if you want to learn. one thing that maybe drives me a little nuts. It's like, oh, I'm starting brand new and I only want to focus on like the top, like, 4%. It's like, what do you know? It's like, is that it's a valid goal, but there's a lot of learning in the process to get there that actually becomes really valuable.
Right. Like even starting doing rentals, and
Starting doing rentals,
because
learn.
people that are doing rentals now are going to eventually need to buy. And if they see that you're busting it on a rental, then when they're ready to start looking for their first places, and then you help them with their first place, and they might want an investment property.
One of the things I always tell people, and I used to do a lot of training at the real estate, how can I transition from like rentals to sales? I'm like, literally, I will pretty much guarantee you there's a huge chunk of your people, rental clients, that are all going to buy or are likely to buy. And if you do not figure out a system by which you are nurturing and staying in touch and continuing to provide value and context post transaction, when that renter decides to buy, they are not going to be calling you. And 20 years ago, I had a client who she rented like I want to say like a $3,500 a month apartment. Not, I mean, that's a lot of money still today, but that was a lot of money
Right.
20 years ago. Within like a year, I think it was after she renewed the first year, and then about halfway through the second year, she's like, you know what? I need to buy something. And so she did. She bought a condo. And then when she, expanded her life situation, she needed a larger condo. She handed off my information to friends, family members, and that all came from one rental. And we spend so much time with our clients. We get to learn so much about them. Perhaps we know too much about them. I mean, we know the dates of birth. I mean, when you think about the depths of information that we are immersed in transactions when we're doing co-ops and condos, so why would I not be wishing my clients a happy birthday if during the course of going out and I discover that my client is really into a particular author and I see something from that author? Hey, did you know that so and so is coming out with a new book? Maybe I'll just send them the book. Things like that, you are constantly staying in the mix with people. And it's so much easier now because we can organize all the things on our phones and our CRMs and things like that. Whereas I'm old enough that I remember having a Rolodex on my desk
Well, you
in
do
my
have a
life
role, right?
before real estate having now
Well,
it's literally here.
and in your head, right? So your head remembers the
And
thing, and then you have to go look in your
so
phone.
I tell people, my people will often say that I'm very, very thoughtful. And I'm not disagreeing that I'm not thoughtful. However, I write everything down. If something comes into my head, like I will write it down in the person's contact note. So that way this is why I'm thoughtful. I'm thoughtful because I actively listen, but then I note it down because it'll be useful later.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think you're thoughtful because you're a thoughtful person. You're just using that phone or computer in your hand as a tool that makes you, um, able to be thoughtful to more people faster. Because you would have had it in your Rolodex, you would have had it in your file system anyway. It's just faster because you know what? You have what it takes. You real estate is not for the faint of heart. We don't get a salary, it's commission based only. So all the things that you said that new people or anyone that needs to do to stay on top of the financial implications, what's going on in the market, and how to coalesce people and how to get to deals is it's like some of it can be trained, but not really. It's really inside you.
It's inside you and it's also, on the job. it's things that you learn while you are literally slogging through the transactions. And sometimes, and real estate is not for everyone. And there are many different ways that you can be in real estate. And the beauty of also real estate is that there are so many different ways that people decide to run their businesses. There are so many different things that people decide to specialize in. There are so many different things that people may decide, oh, you know what, I really would rather be part of a team, or I want to do X. There is something out there, and if there isn't, you can probably create what that is for yourself. And that's a flexibility that's really remarkable and dynamic today in 2024 that didn't exist, in late 90s, early 2000s.
Right. Well, that's about the time we have for today. Nikki, you are, a Renaissance person with, over your 2+ decades of work, your background and just everything, but just really, that's all what it is. But really, it's who you are as a person, how you decide to go about your business. I can clearly see why Nikki sells NewYorkCity.com, and because people want to work with you because you're a trusted advisor to people, and you support people and you get deals done. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast
My
and having
pleasure.
people learn a little bit about you. You know, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. And obviously, if I have things needing assistance in New York City, I now have
Yeah, and
a new
come into
contact.
the city. Where in Westchester are you based?
I'm in my brokerage is in White Plains. I'm in Rybrook. So I
Okay.
do my daughter actually lives on the right by Columbus Circle. She went to Fordham Law School, and just
Oh,
she just started her work as an attorney in New York City. So I do get into New York City, but as you said, we're tired. We have dogs. It's less easy, right?
it's less easy, and this can be consuming, but it's also important to have boundaries. Um, I like the do not disturb function on my phone now that I am able to use it. I didn't use it for a very long time for a variety of reasons. I was a primary caregiver for my parents until they passed away. So, you can't turn your phone off when you have people that may need to reach you in an emergency. But and also just being mindful. I tell my clients, if you need me after a certain time of the day, let's try to schedule it, because I might want to sleep, I might want to eat, I might want to go to a Broadway show, all these things. Oh my God, I'm totally obsessed. I need to go see Sunset Boulevard. That's like my current obsession. Um, but be mindful, because otherwise this thing will run you. Like, I am currently exhausted because I am running for a little bit too long in the day for too many days in a row.
Right. Well, that's also why I thank you for giving us the time today.
No,
Um,
I'm delighted. So I'm
so
glad this worked out.
yeah, no, thank you, Nikki. So Nikki Beauchamp from Sotheby's, New York City. She's selling New York City, buying, selling, renting. She'll do anything for you. And for another edition of The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker, it's Daniel Berger. Until next time, thank you. Thanks for joining me on The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.